So first job was to remove the tyre. Put some insulating tape around just to try and protect the rim, although I'm not sure because I'm going to take all the paint off anyway. Probably should have put the tyre in the warm room. It was very, very hard, and from the date code it looked like it was 1986 when these Pirelli mandrakes were made, and the rim would appear to be made 79, although the engine and frame numbers seem to imply 1983. With the tyre off the rim and the rim supported in a little frame I made, it was time to use the good old screw fix paint stripper over and over again over a few days to start removing the paint. Once the paint was soft enough, I've used various wire wheels on a flexible drive from my pillar drill to scrape the rims clean of the paint. The wire brushes seem to be soft enough that they're not damaging the alloy. Then it was a case of using abrasive papers and a sharp knife to remove the remaining paint and get it back to bare alloy, ready for painting. Because of the time of year and the damp in the air, I have cheated and used a fan heater to preheat the parts when I've spray painted them and to keep the heat in there while it dries. This is the wheel after primer, and I'm now attempting to remove the wheel bearings. As many of you will know, there's a little spacer tube between the two bearings. You have to tip this over in an angle and then use a drift to knock out the bearing on the other side. For the front wheel, application of heat and thumping with a drift seemed to work okay. I'll explain about the rear wheel later on. Helpfully, the bearing sizes are listed in the parts book, so ordered from just a bearing supplier. I tend to use which bearings, no reason, just because I've used them before. Being impatient, I didn't wait until I got my bearing drifts delivered, so I used a socket to drift the bearing in most of the way, and then finished it off with a pin punch on the outside race to fully seat it. A little grease and a tube put in, and then repeat on the other side so both bearings are in. And here we have the finished painted wheel. 3 layers of etch primer, 3 layers of gold, 2 layers of lacquer to try and toughen it up. The final job before fitting the tyres was just to clean up the alloy faces that the disc and speedo drive go against. These were a tiny bit corroded. A little bit of wet and dry paper just to clean them up. I've bought Conti Go tyres and Continental tubes. Bought the Conti Go's because they are a tubed tyre, and all the other tyres I looked at for the sizes I require seem to be tubeless. I'm sure it's fine putting a tube in a tubeless. I feel happier with a tube in a tubed tyre though. Again, impatient, and didn't wait for my tyre soap to turn up. I know you shouldn't use it, but a little bit of fairy liquid watered down helped the tyre slide on, and I bought some rim and then putting air in the tyre, pumping it up over pressure to get the bead to sit on the rim correctly. There we go, finished front wheel ready for the motorbike. And this is just a view from the Speedo drive side. If you're able to see, I'm not sure, but you will see I've got the arrow in the correct direction. These are universal front rear tyres, so you have to make sure you install them correctly. And then it was repeat for the rear wheel, which definitely did need stripping back to bare metal. It was quite a bit worse than the front one. So here we are in paint stripper, a few days for that to soak in, then we can use the wire brush method again to remove the back to bare alloy. Again, 3 coats of primer, 2 coats of gold paint, 2 coats of the lacquer to give a tougher finish. This time I had some tyre soap, so the rim and tyre was soaped. Rim protectors went in. I had them a little bit closer this time so that I didn't chip the rim while putting the tyre back on. And here's the finished rear tyre. You can see I've got it set up on a paddle stand with some wheel balancing cones in. I did the same to the front wheel. I'm not sure it's necessary with these wheels. I don't ever remember balancing my 3.5 sport wheels, but as I've got the kit I thought I'd have a go. The front wheel ended up with about 20 grams. I've run out a little sticky bits, but I think the back wheel's going to end up with about 20 grams as well to balance it. Other tyres I've used have a little dot painted on them that you put opposite the tyre valve so that it's more balanced. It shows you where the heavy part of the tyre was. I couldn't see any markings at all for these tyres. It was just a case of putting them on and then seeing where they balance. It does appear that the valve is the heavier part though. It's a little time consuming. You just have to take your time while the wheel settles itself and then apply the counterweights on the opposite side to the heavy side. Go again, keep going until it stops anywhere instead of sinking down. And that's the front and rear wheels finished, painted, tired and waiting to go on the motorbike. So, had real trouble getting the rear wheel bearings out. There's a little tube and you have to tip it to one side so you can push on the inside of the race to knock them out, and the tube wouldn't tip enough. So thanks to a VMCC club member for this tip. So essentially what you have to do is to remove the cage that holds the ball bearings in place, and I used a drill to drill a hole through, and then with pliers or side cutters pull all the cage out, and you end up with just the ball bearings loose. And then if you tip them all to one side, with a bit of persuasion, you can get the inner race to come out. The balls fall out and you've then got a larger space through which to hit and knock on the inner race of the other one. And then when you've finished, it won't work now because I haven't got any grease, But you put the bearings back in, you pop the inner race back in, and then with the all bearings spaced out, you can turn the wheel over and then hit on the inner race of this one. And amazingly, even though the cage isn't there, there's enough purchase to knock it out. So that was another lesson learnt while doing this project.